Good morning, Simon. Welcome to Disabled and Proud. How are you today?
I'm very well, thank you. Yeah, it's not too bad at all. Good. How are you?
Yeah, no, I'm really good, thank you. I'm glad that the sun's out. It's so nice and sunny.
It is, and I've got a nice big back garden as well with a few chairs outside, so I'm going to sit outside all most of the day.
Perfect. Oh, that's so ideal. So, first question that I ask every single guest on the podcast is, how do you refer to your disability?
I refer to my disability as the technical term of Cauda Equina Syndrome, which then scares everyone in the world because nobody knows what it is.
Yeah.
One of the doctors who specialises in this area, he says that every emergency A&E doctor is terrified of, and the public have got no idea what it is.
Wow.
Yeah, it's spinal damage to you and me, and it needs to be treated within 48 hours, otherwise you're left paralysed for life, like me.
Wow.
Yeah, so you need emergency decompression surgery, and it can result, it can stem from like a slipped disc or pulled muscle in the back and so on and so forth. And if you've got shooting pains or you can't go to the toilet or you can't use your bladder or your bowels, then they're called red flags, and you've got to go down to A&E immediately because you might have CES, Cauda Equina Syndrome. And if you don't get the operation within 48 hours, you're pretty much done for the rest of your life because it is 100% reversible, but you've got a 48-hour window before it needs to be done. Otherwise, the damage has been done to your spine.
Wow. God, that was not the answer that I was expecting.
Yeah, it costs the NHS about £350 million a year in compensation. And it's only now that I'm working with Oxford University to do the first research programme ever done in the UK about it, or the world, because nothing's ever been done about it before.
Wow. So can that come, like you said, so it can come on from like a slip disc, pulled muscle? It can
absolutely. Pulled muscle in your back. Yeah, absolutely. It's very, if you've got shooting pains in your legs and you can't use your bowels, or you've got, signs of like burning sensations in your legs, these all trigger warning for Cauda Equina Syndrome. And people don't know about the red flags. So I'm hopefully, I've done an NHS awareness video, which I'll happily send to you later so you can put up on the podcast.
Oh, yeah, do.
It's just a question of raising awareness of it because nobody knows what it is or how it is and how it comes about.
Yeah, and that's it's so interesting that you're going to be a part of like the research that's going into it, because I think that would be so fascinating because obviously, as you say, nothing's been done. So that will be like a massive learning curve for everyone involved.
Yeah, I mean, I'm the one of the doctors at Oxford University put into words. He said, "You are the most unqualified person I know for Cauda Equina Syndrome, but the most experienced."
And so, am I right in thinking that you then acquired your disability? You weren't born disabled?
No. I got injured in 2014. The chiropractor crushed my spine.
Oh my goodness.
And then the following morning, I woke up and I had no sensation from the waist down. It completely paralyzed me.
Oh my good. Again, was not expecting that answer at all.
It got worse after that because then I went to accident and emergency.
Yeah.
And this is where the 48-hour window comes in. And the A&E doctor put possible Cauda Equina Syndrome, but the consultant overrid the A&E doctor.
Oh, no.
And it was misdiagnosed. So I was in hospital for months not knowing what was wrong with me. And we didn't hear the term Cauda Equina Syndrome for 2 years. So, when I talk about that 48-hour window, and I'm in hospital for months, the damage has already been done. So I got told I'd never sit up again.
Like, that's a story in and of itself. Because
there's a film coming out about it.
Yeah, like it always blows my mind when people acquire their disability, because obviously I don't know what it's like to acquire a disability, is that your life literally changes somewhat overnight. And it complete change, and that complete change of mindset and complete change of everything. Like, you become like a stranger in your own body literally overnight. I'm always blown away by it because I don't have that experience of disability. So whenever I talk to someone who has acquired a disability, I'm always very interested to know what that change overnight was like.
Here's the thing as well. So I worked for social services for 8 years.
Yeah.
And I specialised in adult mental health and physical disabilities. And I've got qualifications in this.
Yeah.
Okay. I've been on training programs. I've got dozens of certificates in mental health services and physical disabilities, learning disabilities.
Yeah.
And until you actually have it done to yourself, you will know absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You can have the education of it. That's fine. But experiencing it for real is completely different. It's like playing Fortnite or Call of Duty on the PlayStation. You can play the game, but unless you go into war and into battle in real life, you know nothing about the experience whatsoever.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things. I mean, I lost my job. We had to remortgage the house. We had to, we had to buy thousands of pounds worth of equipment. And and it was a month after the wedding as well, after I got married.
I can imagine you're being like, yeah, this is exactly what I wanted. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we're planning a future for kids and everything else. And and a month after the wedding, got told I'd never sit up again. So
wow, what an introduction to marriage.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, but we're still together. We're still doing very well. 9 years later.
And it's really interesting that you then, it did change your life, because what I go on to talk about with everybody else, and it will be the same with you, but I'm glad that you brought it up, because this transition has been kind of seamless, if I say so myself, is how has this impacted your career? Because obviously, as you said beforehand, you were working social services type work, and now
ironically, I've never been more successful.
Interesting.
So, I mean, I would have stayed at the Leicester City Council for years until I retired. I had a golden pension. It was a government job. It was, local authority. And so I would have been there for the next 35 years. And while I would have been reasonably happy, we had a decent house. We had a 3-bed semi-detached. And my wife had a good job at Britvic Soft Drinks, who was a junior director. So we were very comfortable. But when that transition changed, we lost one income overnight. Kate had to be a full-time carer. Yeah. It's very difficult. So the success, I've probably been 100 times more successful than ever I was working for the council to where I am now. It's absolutely crazy, because you've got a personal interest in it and you care about it so much. You put your passion into it. For me, I would say, since I've been disabled, I haven't worked a day, because it's what I do every day. It's what I'm campaigning for every day. And once you realize that, it's not really work anymore.
Yeah.
It's your goal in life.
Yeah. And it's something you're passionate about.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. So rather than going to work, driving into the city centre, doing emergency call-outs, it's different than being paid by a local authority than something that you actually need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that you're not the first person to say that they've been more successful since acquiring a disability. And it's that shift in mindset that almost makes you, fight is not the right term, because it's not a fight and it's not a battle, but it's almost like it ignites a fire within you to do something better.
It does. Yeah, and this is where Ability Access came from, the Facebook page, and that's where it all started from. And what it was is I'd been in rehabilitation for a year, and I was just trying to learn to walk again. I couldn't walk properly, but I was doing everything I can to get back onto my feet. And I've had a couple of injections in the spine, had physiotherapy. And this was the first. We got a favourite restaurant in Leicester, and it's a Spanish tapas place. And we like everyone else, even though I specialised in adult mental health and physical disabilities, you hadn't paid any attention to access issues at all. Why do you? You're fully mobile. You just walk in, don't you? You don't pay any attention to ramps or anything else, disabled toilets. And we went out for a meal and we couldn't get in because I was in my wheelchair. And there was diners in front of the disabled access door having their meal. There wasn't a ramp, so they had to bring a ramp out for me. The disabled toilets were upstairs. And these lovely people having a nice romantic meal had to move their meal and their table out of the way of the disabled access, and everyone's watching us and going into this restaurant. And it's almost like a show. And we get inside, I need to go to the toilet, and he goes, they're upstairs. And you're like, really? And that's where Ability Access spanned from that evening. Yeah. It was, and it wasn't to change the world. It wasn't to have 100,000 followers or anything like that. It was to raise awareness of access issues in the local area. That's all it was. Yeah. And it all spanned from there, really, because after like a week, I had a couple hundred followers.
Yeah.
After 5 weeks, I had a couple of thousand. After that, I had 20,000, and it just kept on climbing and climbing and climbing. It just got really weird very quickly.
But I think that's always the way with these types of things, is that actually, and I was speaking to someone yesterday, is that you kind of fall into these things. You never really set out to do it for like the success, or like, you know, you don't really do it to like the fame or the glory, or, you know, you're kind of just doing it to like to highlight an issue, or like for me, I just want to have a conversation, and you kind of fall into it, and then you're like, oh, so like that this is needed. These like this, you know, this conversation is needed, this access is needed, and you know, there's a whole load of people in a community out there who want that information.
And what happened was when they started winning lots of awards, and I got like awards handed to me for breaking down barriers in the community. I won something called, which is quite prestigious apparently. It's called the Jesse Jackson Prize from De Montfort University, which is quite nice.
Yeah.
You know, they were very generous, handing out money as well with that as well. So that was quite nice. And yeah, it just started. And then 2019, what happened was just before then, there was Vicky Blatch. I don't know if you remember her. She was in the Alton Towers accident. And I think it was 2017 when she posed naked on like in the Sun newspaper or something, covering up her amputated leg. And in 2019, someone posted it on Ability Access, and that's when things absolutely got, if I'm allowed to say it, batshit crazy with Ability Access. And Facebook said it was porn. And what happened is they shut down Ability Access. And so I've got like 50 odd thousand followers on Ability Access at that time. No, you know, it's shut. I can't invite people to the page. I can't post anything on the page. And I was speaking to a marketing expert, and I'll send you the recording of it as well. And it's on my blog, abilityaccess.blog, where I actually recorded a marketing expert saying disability is disturbing. Nobody wants to see disability on Facebook. Actual quote. And within 2 or 3 hours, I was on Radio 5 Live, and then it was national news, and then it was global news. And they had, because of my recording, they had protests all over the world, in Australia and New York and so on. And the group was called "Are We Disturbing You, Facebook?" And that's when it went. Ability Access went from a £50,000 page, 50,000 followers to 100,000 followers, reaching 24 million people a month. It just exploded like you wouldn't believe. And yeah,
I cannot believe that someone said that.
Yeah.
Disability is disturbing and nobody wants to see it. And like, if that doesn't sum up the cultural and societal issues that disability and people with disabilities face on a daily basis, I literally have no idea what will.
Yeah, it was absolutely. I mean, at that point, I've just finished university, and I'm a qualified journalist now because I returned to university after my injury to retrain.
Yeah.
And I know immediately what I've got is global solid gold.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is.
Yeah, this is the biggest company in the world saying disability is disturbing. We don't want disability on Facebook. And that's from a marketing expert with Facebook. They were saying people find disability disturbing. And it just went absolutely. I was doing interviews all over the world for the next few days, and I didn't sleep for 3 days.
Yeah.
Everyone wanted to speak to me. Yeah. So that was fun.
Yeah, but also like that encapsulates absolutely everything that on a daily basis disabled people have to almost like fight against and argue against, and like wild. But also I'm so glad that you have that recording, because it just goes to show that, because you know, I think a lot of people tend to think that people with disabilities are a bit too loud, or they're a bit too shouty, or you know, you're asking for too much. But actually when you have it literally as like evidence, like pure evidence, you're like, actually, no, this is what we're faced with every single day. And this
isn't just an isolated incident. This is from multiple organizations as well. So, I mean, Facebook is obviously the top of the tree, but when you've got other businesses as well who struggle with providing access for disabled customers, this is what the world actually thinks about disabled people. We're an inconvenience for them.
And that's so true, because I think a lot of people, I say a lot of people, I mean, everyone who isn't disabled does seem to think that disability is inconvenience. And for a long time, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, is society has deemed disability to mean inadequacy and also like annoyance and like too much and like too, like, you know, a bit of a burden, when actually that's not what it means at all, but that's how society now sees it. And like, you've literally got that piece of gold evidence to prove that, and you'll be able to use it forever.
I know, crazy, isn't it?
And it's not, and it's not going to go away either.
No, I mean, things should get better over time, but whether they do or not is another matter.
So. Yeah, completely agreed. And I think, you know, progress is progress, no matter how we look at it, but it depends how fast or quick it's going to happen, and that's a completely different matter.
Yeah. So I would like to say this is all documented in a new film that's just been recorded. We recorded it in lockdown, and this wasn't my idea, by the way. It's how it's done by a company called Branded Studios, who are based in Bournemouth. They just work with like Patrick Stewart, Sylvester Stallone, and all the, you know. And they wanted to do a documentary about me, from how I went from becoming disabled to one of the most influential people in the UK. With the ability access page, with the grumpy Gits, and so on and so forth. And yeah, it's coming out soon. It's just everything's been filmed. We're just in the final bits of editing for iTunes and everything else.
Oh, I love that.
Quota. And it's won 60 major film awards so far.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I've got a cabinet of awards over there from international film festivals from around the world, which is absolutely crazy.
That's so cool. So I love that.
It's one like best film, best producer. I mean, I was one of the executive producers. You know, so we've got best film, best producer, best director for Charlotte Fantelli. I'll send you the link to the trailer, which is on YouTube as well.
Yeah, do.
And it's just really weird that we had a London premiere as well last year with Vanessa Phelps and other people. I got no idea who they were, from Bridgerton, and it was a very nice evening. Got a standing ovation and stuff for questions and answers afterwards, and it did really well. So I've got lots of influencers there. I don't know what influencers do. I haven't got a clue. I don't. I'm sorry. I've got no idea who these people were. I mean, they were very nice. I mean, you know, they're all there to having their pictures taken, you know, in front of the press. And I'm just standing there in my tux, or sitting there in my tux, I should say. And I got no idea who because obviously it says Simon Sansome star, an executive producer. And I'm someone standing next to me, and they go, "Oh yeah, I've got like 500,000 followers on Instagram."
And you're like, that means absolutely nothing to me.
No, apparently half the cast of Bridgerton were there. I've never seen it. I've got no idea who they were.
I have so much time for that. I have so much time for that.
Yeah, and then there was a story in one of the newspapers about you know, all these influencers turning up at this premiere, and they didn't do anything about the film whatsoever.
Absolutely standard. Yeah. And I'd actually love it if you could talk a bit more about the Grumpy Gits podcast, because I think that's a very interesting concept, and I love it.
Yeah, so the Grumpy Gits podcast is a mixture between me and the Grumpy Dads. So, so the Grumpy Gits is made up of myself, Adam Pearson, who's in New York filming for Sebastian Stan, which is quite nice.
I know. I literally saw a picture of him there last night with him, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is wild.
Yeah, me and Kate are hoping to fly out there next week to see them. And Chris Lee Smith and Duncan Casburn. And what it was is I was into how me and Adam met, and we've been friends for years now, is I started a podcast which got no listeners whatsoever. And it was almost like my therapy. It was called Wild Disabled. And it was me going around talking to people who had become disabled but also live with disabilities, and how they went from that to being a success. And so that's like Rosie Jones, Michael Keynes, who's the chef, Tanny Gray Thompson, Sam Bullock, Sam Renk, and it was going around their houses and just doing an interview with them. And it is actually quite a nice interview and quite a nice podcast. Nobody listened to it, you know, but it introduced me to a world that I didn't know existed. And me and Adam, Adam was my first interviewee, and we met up in central London. We went to the Tate to record, and you should never record a podcast in the Tate, which I
was
learned
about
very
to say
quickly.
the Tate's such a bad idea to record.
Yeah, I didn't know that at the time. I was a complete novice. It was just like a central location that I knew.
Yeah.
And it's so echoey. There's music playing in the background. It's such a bad recording. Okay. But anyway, my cousin also lived in central London at the time, and it was her birthday. And I was going to go around for a meal that evening. And I said, do you want to come along? You might, and I haven't been able to get rid of him since. So we are actually really good friends. He comes up to mine for the weekends and stuff, and we hang out. And he's although I do take the piss out of him, it looks like he's been stung by bees or whatever. I know. I actually do love him to bits, but he takes the piss out of me. I take the piss out of him. And I got a few months after that, I got invited on to the Grumpy Dads with Chris and Duncan, who were the other two Grumpy Kids, and they had a very good concept called the Grumpy Dads. Yeah. But again, nobody was listening to it. They were getting like 25, 35 views per episode, but they enjoyed doing it.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed the interview, and it worked really well. The actual chemistry between us three worked really well. And I was thinking, well, this is an idea of why don't would Adam be up for doing it? Because he's got, I'm going to say one of those faces. That's quite bad, but you know what I mean.
Ties in really well.
He's a very good presenter. Okay. And we thought, let's just do a pilot, see how it goes.
Yeah.
And it, 2 years later, it's financially viable now. We're at the point where we're making money from it, which is good. Yeah. We're doing live performances. We're getting 500,000 viewers per episode. And it's just exploded really quickly, which is really nice. We're getting good celebrities on there, Paralympians, also people who can make a difference in people's lives through equipment and stuff.
Yeah.
And when we went to NIDEX this year, everyone knew who we were. Everyone listened to the show. Mm-hmm. And people were asking for our autographs and selfies, which was really weird.
For someone who's not a fan of social media, you're like, this is bizarre.
Yeah. No, I can do like Twitter and Facebook, but that's probably my limit. Instagram, I just can't understand at all.
Yeah.
I've never been able to get on with it at all. But it's just one of those things where it's come together as one, and we put Wild Disabled together, we put the Grumpy Dads together, and we came up with the Grumpy Gits.
Yeah.
And people have responded to it so well that we take the piss out of disability. But also recognize it. But we also talk about serious issues as well, like disability facilities grant, how it's been knocked from 50,000 to 30,000, how people are discriminated against on a daily basis. And while it's not always about disability, it's about current affairs subjects as well, which we've introduced. Yeah. We try and introduce it at the beginning with stupid questions at the beginning called See You Next Tuesday, and it kind of light up. So it's just kind of a light-hearted entertainment way of doing things. So what it sets you up for the episode, because you know that you're not going to get a serious answer, or if we do get a serious answer, we'll still take the piss out of you at the end.
Yeah.
And people have responded to it amazingly well. And it's just going from strength to strength, where, as I said, it's now financially viable, which is great.
Yeah, and that's what everybody wants at the end of the day, isn't it? And I think it's such a good way of like delivering what can be seen as quite difficult and like hard to access topics. Is humor, I always think, is the way forward with that type, difficult disabilities. I mean, like sometimes you do just have to laugh at your disability. Like sometimes that is, because if you don't laugh, you'll probably cry. So like you might as well just laugh about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, people say, "Oh, disabled people don't have sense of humor." Yes, we do. We take the piss out of our legs all the time.
I'm the funniest person I know. Yeah. I'm genuinely the funniest person I know.
Yeah.
And I believe it as well, which is worse.
Yeah. So we just recorded an episode this week with Adam in New York, and basically he was just sitting there. He's in one of the best places for pizza in the world, and he gets a Domino's. Yeah.
I used to live in New York, and that's like a sin. That is a sin.
Okay, so I told him, right, so the best place to get pizza in New York is Joe's Pizza. And they actually quote it in Friends as well, which is in Hell's Kitchen. And, they do deliver, and he gets a Domino's. I mean, come on. Yeah, the man doesn't know.
I
Oh, well, he can. I mean, the man can eat. I mean, every time we go out for a meal, he orders a huge pizza, and I've got no idea where he puts it because it's tiny. It's about that big.
It's always the way with little people. Like I'm quite small myself, and I think I can eat. I can put away a lot of food. It's quite.
I mean, I look at a donut. I put on 5 stone.
It's always the way, though, isn't it? It is always the way. Interestingly, and after acquiring your disability and going through, like, your life literally changes overnight. Do you feel like you found a positive attribute within yourself from going through some form of hardship?
Yes, very much so. I mean, I wouldn't be where I am today without my disability.
Yeah.
Quite simple as that. I live in a very comfortable £1 million house. I wouldn't have that without my disability.
Mm-hmm.
I'm financially secure for life. I wouldn't have that if it wasn't my disability. So yes, there are downsides to being disabled.
Yeah.
It's enormously expensive. And I struggle on a daily basis. Yesterday, I had to go for a 3-hour kit because I was hurting so much. I get shooting pains. I have something called epilepsy of the legs, which paralyzes me from time to time, which happens a couple of times, 3 times a month, which just knocks me for 6. And I just can't get out of bed because my legs won't support me.
Yeah.
So I can't transfer. So luckily, I'm still able to transfer, but I can't walk. And so there are significant downsides to it. But also the amount of people I've helped, the influence I've done, the stories I've written, the policies I've changed, the awards I've won, none of it would have come if I was still working for the local authority.
Yeah.
And there was, just to give you an idea, I wrote an article a little while ago about council tax banding.
Mm-hmm.
And where you can actually, if you've got an adapted room, medical room, or you use a wheelchair indoors, or you've got like a walk-in shower adapted bathroom,
like a wet room.
You can get like a wet room. You can get a band reduction on your council tax. And so I wrote a story about that because nobody was talking about it. And this woman claimed back £15,000 because the local authority backdated it for her. And it's just little things like that have made an impact. Yeah, and I've had people saying, you've completely changed my life. You've actually raised stuff that we weren't aware of. And being a journalist and being able to write disabled stories like this has a huge implication on things.
Yeah, massively. And I love that for you, it's been about the impact that you've been able to create for other people, like as well as yourself. That's like, a real big bonus, but you've genuinely been able to go out there and genuinely help people.
Yeah.
People wouldn't have necessarily known things if you hadn't written about them, hadn't spoken about them, hadn't talked about it. And I love that. Yeah.
So one of the things I have set up in the past year, and it's doing okay, is called Ability Access Legal. Mm-hmm. And what this is my best mate is an employment barrister. And so what we're doing is we're representing people completely free of charge, facing disability discrimination in the workplace.
Yeah.
And and every case we've taken on, we've won so far, which is brilliant.
Wow.
And one woman who came to us was actually fired from a local authority. She used to work for Children's Social Services. Yeah. And she's been disabled all her life, and she had to change her medication. But the medication was going to have side effects, so they signed her off for a month and a half. So the side effects could basically disappear when she gets used to her medication.
Yeah.
And when she went back to work, she got fired for having too much time off. And she's got a mortgage, she's got 2 young kids, she doesn't know what to do with herself. And we took on the case and approached the local authority. And although she didn't want to go back to Children's Social Services to work with a manager who fired her, which is completely understandable. Yeah, absolutely. They did redeploy her to a different department within the council, and she got her job back. And that just goes to show of what you can do. And this is just one of a number of cases we've taken on in the past year on helping people and protecting people and helping them as much as we can. And being financially skilled, being able to do that as well is also beneficial, because I'm trying to give it back to the community, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, of course it does.
Helping that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that that's a really wonderful way of looking at it, is that you're giving back to a community that's also given you so much too. And like,
yes, very much
really like symbiotic relationship, which is great. So I always ask everybody who's been on the podcast, do you have a piece of advice for either or? And most people actually answer both. Oh, younger version of yourself or a younger person with the same disability as you?
So the thing is as well, I would give everything up to be able to walk as well. To be able to be independent.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get through to special assistants at Heathrow to book a flight to New York, and I just can't get through. I've been on the phone for an hour and a half, and I'm just like on hold. And it's such an inconvenience being disabled. It's just a question of going out, looking, where can you go? Can you have that freedom? You can't. So I think if what I knew now is I would have put more effort into being more active as a young, fit, able person.
Yeah.
Fighting for disability rights and so on and so forth without the disability. But then again, I wouldn't be where I am without the disability. So I honestly don't know. It's a hard one to answer because
it's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, it is an interesting question because it's basically defined me. But when I was younger, I don't think I would have had the passion, even with the disability, to do what I did until then. Because it was only later in life, after I got the disability, I went to university and decided I'm going to do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a hard question to answer, and I'm not sure I've answered it completely.
But this is why I like having these conversations, because not everybody has complete answers for any of the questions. And that's basically what it's like with disability, is that there are never really complete answers to the questions that you have.
No.
Ever. And that's true if you go if we're going to talk like medically, if we're going to talk, socially, if we're going to talk going in and out of councils and, going down like authoritative routes, you never really get a complete answer for the questions that you have. And it's only until you like rely on yourself and you're able to give yourself the answers that's probably when you're going to get the most reliable and set answer.
I would say that where I am now, I'm possibly the most comfortable I've been with myself for a very long time.
Yeah.
I think that's all that anyone wants, is to know who you are, know what you stand for, the honesty, the integrity, and trying to do the best you can for not only yourself, but also people around you and the community you represent. And I feel I do that as honorably as possible.
Yeah.
I mean, I do take the piss, don't get me wrong, and I joke about it, but, you try and also enjoy it as well.
And I think what's really interesting is that talking about joking and jokes with disability, it's very much set upon who you're with. I find there are some people that I can have a real good laugh, joke, a bit like crying laughter with, but there are some people that I will never enter any form of jokey conversations with, and that's purely because I know that I represent a community that if someone was to come up to, someone else and joke because they'd heard me say something and that person took it the wrong way, I would never forgive myself for that. So it is interesting.
I've got a different approach to that.
Interesting. I love that.
Yeah, I don't give a fuck. I mean, if someone's insulted, it's their own problem if they're insulted. I mean, if I'm specifically racist, I'd expect backlash. But if I'm giving my personal opinion, and by the way, I would never be racist or anything like that. But if I give my personal opinion or anything like that, and they're insulted by it, that's their own problem for being insulted. They're too touchy. Get over yourself. Not everyone has the same opinion as you, and if you think that, then you're very small-minded. So get over yourself.
An opinion is an opinion; it's not a fact.
Exactly. Yes.
So I know that you have come up with a brand new app, and it is was it launched quite recently on Apple and Android?
Yeah, it was launched last week and a half ago.
God, how good is that for like retaining information? So I was wondering if you could tell us a bit more about Snowball app and what it entails and what it's all about.
Yeah, certainly. So Snowball is a spin-off from Ability Access. So earlier I spoke about how I couldn't get into my local restaurant.
Yeah.
And raising awareness of disabled access in the local area. That's where Ability Access spawned from. And until recently, I mean, this has been a 6-year project from Ability Access to where I am now. It's called Snowball Community. You can find it on Apple and Android. You can download it now. It's ready to go. And we'll put the advert up with Hannah Cockcroft and Aaron Phipps, who are both gold medalists.
Yeah.
And what it is, it's a review platform. It's TripAdvisor for the disabled community.
I love that.
And yeah, you can. So what you do is you take a picture of wherever you've been, Okay. You can take pictures of disabled toilets or whatever, or ramps or automatic doors or hearing loops or whatever. And you can leave a review of the place. So also it's linked to because it's linked to Google as well. It's a global app. So whether you're in New York or in London or Birmingham or in your local village and the local post office, you can download the app. You can put a review on any place that has where customers can go. Yeah. So any shop, pub, restaurant, theatre, cinema, sports complex, sports stadiums, Wembley Stadium, wherever you go, you can put a review on how accessible it is. And it's also it's very good. So for example, it's brilliant for students as well. So if you're going to university, okay, and you don't know where to go, you can look on the app, okay, and you can say, oh, okay, I can go on a pub crawl here, and here. But I'll avoid these places because I can't get in there. So it improves people's quality of life as well. I mean, the amount of times I've been to restaurants, pubs, places, venues, events where I've been turned away from lack of disabled access is enormous, especially around like somewhere like Covent Garden in central London. Me and my wife spent 2 hours looking for a restaurant because we were going to the theatre, and in the end we had to get a McDonald's because we lost so much time trying to look for an accessible place. And we wanted something to eat before the show started. And it stops you from going back to the places where, because if you are disabled, you live a very small life, and that's not meant to sound insulting, but you always return to places that have good accessibility.
Yeah,
and this is hopefully going to change that. Okay, but because you can put independent places on there, you can put independent restaurants on there, independent shops. If you want to support local butchers or something, they can tell you if it's accessible. Or if they're not accessible, if you go to the butchers or something, they'll come to you and just say, like Timpson's in Loughborough is not accessible at all, but they'll come to the front door for you to help you out. And it's that little bit of information that people need to know on how to interact with their own communities. And this is what the app does. It's not all preloaded. So it's a slow builder. So you need to actually put things up there on a regular basis. So, for example, Odeon in Newcastle probably isn't on there at the moment because we haven't had a review about it. But Odeon in Loughborough is. So you need to be specific about the location and where you're going and what you want to review. So if you type in Oxford, for example, I know there's only 2 places on there at the moment, but the more places get added, the better it is for everyone.
Yeah.
So it will grow over time. The more people do it. And we've got 7 times Paralympian gold medalist Hannah Cockcroft, who's just starting the Commonwealth Games, and gold medalist from Tokyo, Aaron Phipps, who's a wheelchair rugby player, as brand ambassadors. But also we've got 12 community brand ambassadors based all over the UK, including Sam Bullock in London, Jordan Jarrett from Channel 4 News, Martin Dugan from Newsround, who's based in Manchester. On Monday. Oh, yeah. He's just been an honorary Grumpy Git. He helped us out at NIDEX recently because he covered for Adam Wise filming in New York. So we got all just casually. So we've got all these celebrity ambassadors based all over the UK who are going around uploading stuff and promoting our social media for us. So the good thing about it is we can reach 1 million people a tweet with all of us. Promote the app. So in the first week and a half, we've got hundreds of reviews up all over the place. And we've got hundreds of people signed up. We've also got like NHS Trust football stadiums, Newcastle Falcons have signed up, University of East London have signed up. So we're getting large businesses signing up to Snowball, and they're starting to put up stuff, which is fantastic. And it also goes down to the local councils as well. We got a parish council in the middle of nowhere in Northamptonshire. I'd never heard of them before, who signed up to it as well.
I love that.
And they're putting up their local village on how accessible their post office is.
Whereabouts is that, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, I haven't got a foggiest. I'm going to have to look it up.
Definitely look it up and let me know, only because I know Northampton really, really well. I'm just really intrigued to what village it is.
I'll send you it. Yeah. And it just goes to show you that also little councils and big councils and metropolitan cities can all be involved in this.
Yeah.
And it might take a couple of years to get tens of thousands of places reviewed on there, but it will happen eventually. We got great publicity. It's in the news for the past few days. And I'm doing lots of interviews for it as well. And it's just one of those things that's desperately needed.
Yeah. And that's the thing, that it is needed, because a lot of people, I think of one thing on the top of my head, that recently I had a friend who asked, I really want to go out in Leeds I want to go out for a boogie. Where's wheelchair accessible? And it was like specifically like karaoke bar. She was like, I really want to go out for a night out karaoke with me and my pals. We all want to go out. Where's accessible in Leeds for a karaoke bar? And there's nowhere.
No, not that you know of.
Well, not that we can find. So now we need to download the app and let everybody else know where it is.
Yes. So, and that's the whole idea. If you want to go for a night out as well, you can, if you're going out to pubs, restaurants, whatever, you can look on there. You can put in like Loughborough, for example, and it will populate the area as well on what's accessible and where's not. So, so rather than going through reams and reams of, what degree the slope is or anything like that, to get into a place, you just have a quick look and say, okay, 80% of people said they'll go back to this place. So yes, it might not be completely accessible. I might be able to access half the bar, but as long as I can access the disabled toilet, the karaoke machine, we're away.
Yeah, exactly. I think I already know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. I have a particular set of questions that I find really annoying when people ask them about my disability. And it tends to be along the lines of, did a shark bite your arm off, or what happened? And now I was wondering if you had any particular intrusive questions that you find annoying or like just a bit too much from random people.
Oh, all the time. Why are you in a wheelchair? That's always the top one. I actually made an official complaint about that once. I was at Costco in Leicester, and you get these people handing out chicken samples and drinks.
Yeah.
Yeah. This bloke came up to me and he goes, "Why are you in a wheelchair, mate?" I went, "Excuse me?" And he goes, "Why are you in a wheelchair?" I went, "Can I get you?" And I go, "Can I get your email, please?" He goes, "Why?" I goes, "I'll send you over my medical records for you so you can have a look at them if you want." The best answer I heard of, I wasn't there to witness it, is Dan White and Emily White. So Dan White is an ambassador for Snowball, and he's got a disabled daughter called Emily, and she's lovely. And it was out and about, and he told me this story, and he goes, this bloke came up to me and goes, because she's in a wheelchair, he goes, "Oh, aren't you brave being out and about in the community in your wheelchair?" And she just turned around to me and went, "Why, I wasn't in a war." And it's, the worst one I had was at our old house, and we used to go for walks quite a lot, and around the park and stuff. And this bloke came up to me and patted me on the head when he was walking his dog. I went, "Oh, it's nice to see you out and about." I went, "Get your fucking hands off me."
Patted you on the head, like,
"Nice to see you out and about." Yeah.
Oh,
get your hands off me. Yeah. Yeah. I should have done him for assault. Patronizing
people. Honestly, I don't know where they get the gall and the gumption from to think that that's acceptable to do that. What I don't understand is that doing that to any other like group in society, you're you'd be crucified on the spot by media, press, the full lot. But is it acceptable to do it to disabled people? Absolutely not. But you still think it's okay to do it anyway.
It happened to me last night in the pub. We went out for a meal with my cousin and my wife, and I was in my mobility scooter.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Don't do any wheelies on that." Fucking, I can't do wheelies. It's a mobility scooter. Shut the fuck up. And it gets, the worst one is, you need some gears on that, or you need to slow down, or you need to booster on that, or, have you got a driving license for that? Well, no, you don't need one. I mean, everywhere you go, they think they're being funny, but really, I've heard it 1,000 times, if not more, and you're just being patronizing.
Yeah, like
and
at
they
this
think
point,
they're being funny. Yeah, they're not funny at all, and they think they are. Yeah, and it's so annoying. It really is annoying, and you put a smile on your face, but really, you just want to say "fuck off."
Yeah, and I think it's so true. Is that people think that they're being funny or they're trying to be a bit relatable when actually it's just weird, awkward, and like on so many levels wrong.
But if you've got an OAP with a walker, they wouldn't say anything.
No.
That's the thing. I've got a walker. I mean, I can't really use it that well, but I've got a walker. And if I was using that, they wouldn't say a thing. It's only because it's got a motorized engine on it, is that they say something. I'm like, oh, yeah.
Not again.
Yeah. Oh, Yeah, really annoying, really irritating. I just want to throw stuff at them.
But it's true, and like that's why I like to ask these questions, because some people don't get bothered by any questions. They're like, no, like you can ask me any question, or like, you know, if you've got something to say, like I'd happily have that conversation with you. Whereas other people are like, no, actually, like these things are not okay to ask me. And like, you know, that's personal preference. It's human nature. We all have different things that we're accepting of. But it's interesting that so many people have so many different varying opinions on this.
If they have a genuine question, because my condition is very rare. Well, at least I say rare. Like four people really get Cauda Equina Syndrome in the UK, but nobody knows about it. So if they've got a genuine interest in it, I will happily answer it, especially for young kids as well.
Yeah.
You know, if young kids come up to me and go, "Why are you in that thing?" And I go, right, I got injured in 2014. I've got something called Cauda Equina Syndrome, which means I've got limited sensation from the waist down. It's a spinal damage, so you've got to look after your back. Yeah. That I don't mind, okay? But if you're asking why you're in a wheelchair, just out of curiosity, don't want to talk to you.
Yeah.
I've got better things to do with my time, especially when you're just handing out chicken in Costco. I did get an unreserving apology, and apparently they started a whole training course for how, because apparently the people who hand out stuff in Costco are contractors by a private company, and they didn't implement sensitivity training for disabled customers to that. So yeah, absolutely. So something did come out of that. So
well, then this goes back to you making that difference in the community, doesn't it? Like it all feeds into that.
And when I went back there, he just went, "Hello, sir. How you doing?"
That's like the best response that you can get when you're like, yes, I did that. Thank you very much. So my final question for you is, Simon, can you say that you're disabled and proud?
You mean, am I disabled and proud, or are we talking about the LGBT community? Or
no. We're talking like, are you proud to be disabled?
Am I proud to be disabled? No. I'm not. Being disabled sucks. Let's face it. It's a hard graft every day, especially with my disability. Yeah. And I'd give it all up tomorrow. However, I am disabled. I can't hide from it. I can't deny it. And I will do everything I can to make sure everyone gets equal rights. And I'm a former liberal. I'm a former Liberal Democrat from years ago, from a different lifetime ago. And I always. One thing I did like about the Liberal Democrats, I know we're talking about politics and we shouldn't really, but, is the Liberals believe that anyone standing next to you should have the same rights, full stop.
Yeah.
Okay. As the person standing next to you, the other side. So am I proud to, and that isn't what we have in today's society. There is disability discrimination. There is, on the benefits system, on the carer sector, disability facilities grant. It is very difficult being disabled in the 21st century, and people don't realize how difficult it is. So am I proud and disabled? No, because it sucks, and it's not an equal and fair society for the disabled community. Once it is, yes, I will be.
Yeah. I like that answer, because I feel like you've given across your points and your reasons as to why, and I think everybody's different, and that's like a brilliant answer. But I really want to thank you today for giving up your time and coming on the podcast, because I think it's been a very interesting chat, and I've really loved listening to what you've had to say. So thanks so much for coming on.
You're more than welcome anytime.
Thank you.